Last couple weeks on just developing generally your ability to like make things bulbous, control the clay on its way out and back in. You had an opportunity to explore like individual ideas that you're interested in, right? So I think that's been good. You know, before that we had like, I forget what we did before that, but we had like a requirement that you complete a number of pieces. I think, yeah, it was faceted forms. And then this last time it was more based on skill developing. This time it's going to be more specific, which is teapots. Brody's been making a lot of teapots lately, and I've been kind of, just watching his development. We've been interacting a little bit, but it's been kind of a self-driven kind of thing. I always include teapots in intermediate classes, so I thought this might be a good time for it. You guys have the skills for it. I think some of the challenges that you're going to find with making teapots is just that you're working at various scales within the same piece. It'll spark the development of some new skills, like maybe precision with that gallery or that area on top of the teapot where the lid fits in, the actual making of the lid and the spout, thinking more clearly about how those parts relate to one another, deciding on how you want to approach the problem of making a handle and how that relates to the overall form. So basically it's going to be like, I'm foreseeing it being like probably a 2-week unit, and I'm not going to say you need a certain number of teapots, but I'll be watching kind of like when we were doing the forming and including bulbousness, shaping into our work. I'll be watching you guys' individual development of your skills, and also seeing how you put them together and the creativity involved with that. This clay is freshly recycled clay from North Carolina called Dark Star, and because it's been recently recycled, it's not as plastic as it might have been when it came from the filter pressed facility where they get really nice quality clay. So I'm kind of just getting a feel for it today while I'm throwing for you. What we've got going on is starting off with the teapot body. I'm going to make these just the way I would make them myself. It's been a while since I've made teapots, a few months, so I'm kind of just warming up on this first one, but I'm going to just work the way I normally would in making a teapot body and not slow down or speed up or anything. I'm also going to focus on the quality, knowing that the first few of any series are kind of like exploring, discovering, kind of retuning, and then once I've done a few, I'll come in and do maybe a larger series. Like so today I probably will make 4 teapot bodies and see those through the process and decide what ideas I want to go with as the days wear on the rest of the week. So in thinking about this piece, I'm going to go with a narrower footed teapot. Some teapots are very wide, they're almost jug-like in their base, right? And this one I'm going to go with a narrower, and I'm going to tie in that idea we worked with last week about like incorporating bulbousness. I'm always talking about like the sequence of any particular piece, finding success in making it, and I'm already thinking about this gallery, this upper section of the piece that's going to be modified to receive a lid, right? So I want to make sure I leave plenty of extra clay up here on the top because I know I'm going to do something special with that to receive a lid. So come up, get the basic cylinder just like we did last couple of weeks with forming and shaping. And I'll go with more of a straight up cylinder here in this pull. I can sense that the clay is fairly evenly thick throughout, so for the next couple of pulls I'll give it some volume. So that angle of departure is something to think about. Right in, and I'll kind of just take off to kind of really get some of that clay from the base up into the wall and begin giving it some of its volume. About the halfway point, begin coming back in toward the neck, leaving extra clay at the neck so I can do what I want with that lip to make it into a gallery. So probably one more pull into a little bit more volume and a general shape. Move on to the next thing. Really kind of squeezing out in from the outside, stretching from the inside. Giving just a little bit of a lip there, right? So once I've got the piece roughed in, I'll take away just a little bit of the extra clay at the base. It's kind of hard to get to with your fingers. And then rough in the rest of the body, smoothing and stretching a little bit. I like to bite in at the base to give it a little bit of a foot. Apply pressure from the inside, and then just give it a kind of a rounded form. Come into that neck. So, nothing radically different with the making of this piece. I want to just give it just the form I'm looking for, and then move into that gallery section, which will be new information for you guys. After I've done that, usually I'll come in and get that foot locked into how I want it. And then the gallery, I've left the lip a little bit thicker because I want to be able to modify it a little bit. I found a pretty straightforward way to go about creating a gallery, or that inset section on the lip to receive a lid. So I'll wet it just on the top, do a 6-point collar, flatten that over a little bit. Use the side of my pinky to flatten it down even more. And I like to have a little bit of a like little neck kind of shoulder transition to the gallery. So I'll flatten it down so it's almost basically horizontal. So I have a pretty wide, about an inch thick lip there. And I'll come in just with my fingertip. I used to use my thumb fingernail like this to get a sharp cut. But I'll just come down with my fingertip here. See how it's about an inch wide right there? I'll support it on the underside and I'll just push straight down. What that does is that gives me an inset area to receive a lid. And then I can come in if I want, use my fingernail to sharpen that corner so the lid fits nice and tight against a straight wall corner there. And then I'm also thinking about access to the interior. And I want to make sure there's enough room to get a tea bag in and out of there, or two. So it looks like the size on the inside's good. My drop is good. Now it's thinking about the profile. I want to have a little bit more definition to this top section. So I'm going to come in with this rib and make just a little shoulder to that top section. And then what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll just give a couple of concentric step rings to give a little bit of detail to that section. So I've got the teapot body locked in. That's the big part. Now we'll just jump into the other components. Sometimes when I finish that area, this section here of the gallery, the floor of the gallery, raises up, so I'll just give it a little slight taper down. This ensures that the lid fits nicely. So that part's set. Good for a couple of other parts. Oh, cool. There's a wire tool here. There it is. Okay. So body's done. Next, I like to do the lids. And the lids require a little bit of precision. Not too big of a deal. I'll grab what's called a caliper to fit that, to size that. You guys are welcome to use this caliper here. Its points relate equally on both sides. So if I could check the inside of the gallery here, that's the width of my lid. This is how wide my lid needs to be here. So it's a pretty easy way to get the right size lid. So lids are pretty straightforward. I like to do really traditional style lid. One that I learned from looking at the work of Warren McKenzie. It's made all in one shot and off of what we call the hump, which is just a lump of clay. And so what I'll do is I'll take this lump of clay, roughly center it, then gather what I feel is the right amount of clay to make a lid that will fit. So if I have this little bit of clay here, the key here is that the departure from the normal is that we're opening up not in the center to make an opening, but off center to leave a little bit of clay for what's going to be our handle or a knob. So you immediately get that knob created. I like to give it a little bit of attention. I think of them as almost like miniature pots. I want to have a little bit of an S curve in them. I want it to be comfortable with the hand. I'm thinking of the knobs in my kitchen and my cabinets. So a little bit of an S curve. I always take a look at them from the side to make sure I'm happy with the form and proportion of even just this little component. Every little detail matters. So I'll get that set, and I usually put like a little spiral with my thumbnail on the top. So that's done there. I can take this caliper and see that I'm already at the width I need, a little bit more. So I'm going to take this extra clay here on the side. I'm going to draw the clay up into like a little bowl. I'm going to fold it over and get that basic lid form. And then I'll check here, see whether it's the right size. It's a little bit big. So you can come in with a wire tool or needle tool, cut it to the size that you want by supporting the underside and cutting down with your needle. And then I'll check it again. I like it to be a little bit on the smaller side than what I'm looking for. Just about there. And then I always just kind of round out any cut edges if I'm cutting the lip or the edge of a teapot lid to soften it up. And the key here is that you undercut. So this will kind of drive you guys to use your wooden tool correctly. I'm just going to take this wooden tool, I'm going to undercut. I'm going to be pretty assertive. I'm going to come almost all the way in, cut it completely off. It gets rid of all that extra clay right away. And then you can just take your wire tool and cut that free. You can set it down and you have your lid for your teapot. It fits nicely. And then you come in, and the next thing, major thing, is the spout. Spouts are pretty straightforward. There's a lot of creative opportunity with them. I suggest making lots of spouts because they don't take all that long to make once you kind of figure out how to use your hands and fingers to make them. And this way you can kind of test fit multiple spouts to make sure the right one is on your piece. I'll open up maybe 2.5 inches there or so, and then draw up a tapered little mini cylinder just using my fingertips. Draw that clay inward. And then I like to incorporate an S curve into these as well. So I'll draw a little cone cylinder here. And I'll give it a little bit of a bump, a little bit of belly, come back in, come up, and then swoop in just a little bit at the top too. I like to bring the teapot spouts right to a sharp point so it cuts off nicely when pouring. And then I'll come in and reshape it, refine it with a fingertip collar. And then narrow it again slightly. So that's the first thought about the pouring. Involves just having, about a 1/2 inch or so opening on the inside and a sharp point. And then from looking at Warren McKenzie teapots, favorite powder of mine, he'll come in and draw the mouth down a little bit and then give a little pinch from the side. Push that back a little bit. See that one, this clay cracked, so I gotta make another one. This clay's a little bit short, like I had mentioned, so what I'll do is I'll just make this a little bit thicker and I'll go quicker. So, wide opening, dive down, open up. Draw up and in, bring it to a point. Leaving this one a little bit thicker so it can handle the work I'm doing. And then that little bit of an S curve. Color it. I usually pick the high point, come back that way, and I'll just push it just a little bit that way. And then the key is when you cut it off, you come up down low on the throat and up at a slight angle. So then when it sits on the teapot body, the key is the lowest point, the spout right here, is the highest point water can be on the inside of the piece. So I can set it right there. And then you got the teapot spout applied. I can clean that up a little bit, shape it. And then the last thing is just maybe a little review of, oh, I know why I grabbed the wrong piece of clay. It wasn't wedged. That was my clay I was going to use for handles this time. All right, so I'm going to use it for handles. There's all kinds of handle designs or styles you can use. I'll just do the one that you pull it right off of the clay itself, starting off with a tapered piece of clay. And in this case, I'm going to leave it kind of a little bit thick and wide, so it's comfortable in handling. And so that's plenty wide, plenty thin. Snip that, and then kind of pre-shape it, and then it'll fit to the back side of the teapot and around there. And yes, this clay is cracking on me, but the idea is there for the handle, the spout, the body, the lid. Sound good? So none of the individual components are extremely challenging in any way. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get the proportions right so that you have a piece that looks like it's meant to be, that the components bring together the part as a whole. Does that make sense? And over the course of the next few days, I'll make a series of these and improve upon the challenges I found in this form based on what happens in these next 3 or 4 I make today. I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with as well. I'll probably do some more demonstrating as you guys get working. I see what challenges you guys find in making. And within a couple weeks, you guys will all have a beautiful teapot. And I look forward to firing them up for you to see what happens.